Hey, remember the old days when we'd get up early, put on our work boots, and march down to the court packing plant on the outskirts of town? Yeah, those were great days, helping Donald Trump unnaturally expand the number of federal judgeships and Supreme Court justice slots so he could fill them with black-robed oligarchs who were ideologically servile to the great Orange Goblin. And of course, despite this being as fictional as the land of Oz, because Trump hasn't expanded the courts just so he can fill them, it's about as believable as the latest defense tactic yarn that many bigwig leftists spun on their political looms and draped across numerous television networks this past weekend. Greetings, comrades. It's good to have you here. I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. And you know, we saw a preview of this last Wednesday in, of course, the great vice presidential debate. That's when the completely colorblind California Senator Kamala Harris decided she'd tell us about her I'm not race baiting Never Never Land, in which when Mike Pence repeatedly asked her if she and Joe Biden were interested in, as Biden earlier had intimated, literally expanding the Supreme Court just to add leftist justices, she said,
"Do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black?" This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
It's always good that our vice presidential candidate knows the use of pronouns. Wink, wink. Which, of course, dodges the question and implies that if people aren't black, they must all view the Constitution in the same way. And it implies its corollary, the idea that race, especially blackness, has some magical uniformity effect on how one reads the supposed rules of the United States government. Woe unto anyone who might actually possibly ask that, regardless of skin color, people promise to actually abide by the so-called rules of the Constitution as written and amended. Its wording is clear, and the amendment process allows for changes without interpretation based on Harris's seeming racial preferences or any other distinction. And after that duck and cover move pulled on Wednesday, Harris's power pals decided to offer some weekend cartoon-like performances to push the narrative even harder. Thus, the heroic figure of Senate Judiciary Committee member Illinois Democrat Senator Richard Walgreens Durbin, yes indeed, if you don't know that story, you might want to look that up, appeared on Sunday with Chuck Todd on NBC's most illuminating Meet the Press to offer this piece of verbal jujitsu.
It's a common question being asked because American people have watched the Republicans pack in the court over the last 3.5 years, and they brag about it. They've taken every vacancy and filled it.
Which is supposed to be part of the job description of the chief executive, based on the federal court system already constitutionally arranged by Congress to stand above the state Supreme Courts and beneath the U.S. Supreme Court. Vacancies appeared. Trump nominated, and the Senate, that would be the Senate in which Durbin operates and from which he receives a hefty six-figure salary that's virtually impossible for us citizens to stop from growing, approves. As a reminder, here's Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 of
a piece of parchment
called the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. He, the President, shall have the power, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur. And he shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. But the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the President alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. Yet Durbin calls this court packing, implying that the process of Trump merely nominating judges to slots that open is somehow akin to something like FDR's attempt to really pack the Supreme Court so his insult to the Constitution, known as Social Security and many other unconstitutional actions, would survive. FDR's plan was to expand the number of SCOTUS seats and offer special benefits to sitting justices who decided to retire. Here's what that worm of an idea looked like as described by the Federal Judicial Center, a function of the U.S. judicial branch. February 5th, 1937. After winning the 1936 presidential election in a landslide, Franklin D. Roosevelt promised a bill to expand the membership of the Supreme Court. The law would have added 1 justice to the court for each justice over the age of 70, with a maximum of 6 additional justices. Roosevelt's move was clear: to shape the ideological balance of the court so that it would cease striking down his New Deal legislation. As a result, the plan was widely and vehemently criticized. The law was never enacted by Congress, and Roosevelt lost a great deal of political support for having proposed it. But like the strictures of the U.S. Constitution, the actual meaning of court packing seems to matter not at all to Mr. Durbin, and the same can be said for Delaware Democrat Senator Chris Coons, who did his part to spread the narrative by appearing on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace. And as Fox News reporter Tyler Olson writes, Senate Judiciary Committee member Senator Chris Coons said on Sunday that the Senate moving to confirm President Trump's Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett constitutes court packing, and called the nominee's views disqualifying. Thankfully, Olson had the integrity and brains to also write this. Court packing's traditional definition is expanding the Supreme Court by law and then confirming justices to those seats, not what Republicans are doing, which is filling a naturally occurring vacancy. Senator Ben Sasse, Republican of Nebraska, shot back that Coons' definition of court packing was obviously incorrect and accused the Democrat of using Orwellian language. Eric Blair would be proud. No, I don't think he'd be proud. He'd be disgusted. Which is absolutely correct and indicates how little some of the backers of this Trump court-packing fantasy regard other human beings. And Olson added, claiming that court packing is filling open vacancies, that obviously isn't what court packing means, Sasse said. He also called it grotesque that Joe Biden is refusing to answer the really basic question of whether or not he will support court packing as president. Biden has been asked many times his stance on the issue and has refused to answer one way or another. Biden Friday was asked whether or not voters deserve to know if he would pack the court, to which he responded, "No, they don't." Curiously, this court-packing narrative isn't a new one from the left. It's been tossed around a lot more recently because despite wearing his mask a lot, Joe Biden can't seem to stop putting his foot in his mouth. But back in 2018, hardcore leftist Nan Aaron wrote an op-ed for Newsweek whining about Trump appointing what Aaron thought were conservative judges. And yeah, you got it. Court packing. In fact, this kind of word manipulation goes way far back. The manifest fact that progressive collectivists are intellectual grifters who will use any vector, travel along any avenue, warp the meaning of any term to gain political strength has been the case since the days when Thomas Hobbes spread the fallacious notion that a bunch of political thugs could tell you that you have somehow signed on to a social contract, even though there is no such contract and they're just using force on you. Well, no doubt the tradition will continue, and the wizards will keep telling us that their fantasy world is real. But luckily, we can be in touch with each other and remind each other of what reality really is. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. Please make sure if you're watching on YouTube, as I often say, make sure you like and subscribe. Please share the videos if you have the opportunity. Please visit MRCTV.org to find out what the team is doing there. Again, it's MRCTV.org. Everybody there is amazing. And if you want some great items, go to MRC-Store. That's MRC-Store. Get some awesome Christmas gifts for people. We'll see you on Facebook. We'll see you on Instagram. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.